Good morning, everyone. This is Michael Robbins, substituting this morning for Tuya Robbins, and we are presenting the Ask project, a project of invocation of the energies necessary for humanity to make its proper transition into the Aquarian age. This morning we are working with the Soul of Nations meditation, and we're going to be focusing particularly on the United Kingdom, which you may know is one of the three nations, along with the United States and Russia, in whose hands the future of humanity rests. These great experiments, national experiments, are going forward, and according to the success of these experiments, so will be the general success of humanity in achieving what it must achieve in order to enter the Aquarian age in a manner which is given according to the divine plan, and not in some disastrous manner, because we realize that every energy is neutral in a certain sense, and it can be applied according to the quality of the form upon which it makes its impact. So we have about 100 years, well, maybe really exactly 100 years, before the Aquarian age begins. In an important letter to Roberto Assagioli, who, as we know, was a great psychiatrist and psychologist, and also a member of Master K.H.'s ashram, and on loan to D.K. In a letter to Assagioli, D.K. gave the beginning of the Aquarian age as 2117. Interestingly, it's the next time that Venus makes its visible transit across the face of the sun. So we have about 100 years with the Pisces and the sixth ray fading out during this 21st century, and the Aquarian energies growing stronger and stronger until by 2117 they will be the only energies which characterize the precessional age. Meanwhile, we have a lot of work to do, and there are tremendous challenges which are occurring all over the world throughout humanity, but especially in these pivotal nations. The United States, UK, United Kingdom, and Russia, great challenges will occur because the counter force obviously does not want to see the proper emergence of humanity into its new possibilities, and so all of the ancient fires will arise, not only naturally, but because they are prompted by this counteractive force. And we will have to, in our soul nature, overcome these retrogressive tendencies. Now, I'd like to deal with some thoughts which have to do with the welfare of the United Kingdom. And, you know, in this case, I don't mean only England. Of course, Scotland and Wales and perhaps parts of Ireland are included here, as well as certain nations that have been strongly influenced by England and the United Kingdom in general. They have their own independence, of course, and their own rays, but this is a great second-ray center. And so, according to the emergence of the second ray within the United Kingdom, the world will be much affected, and a number of these nations, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, etc., while they have their own definite independence, they are strongly influenced by the second ray, as is the soul of their originally mother country. So what I'd like to deal with here now are some thoughts about these three nations, but especially the United Kingdom, which has been so severely challenged by terrorism recently, and by a process of assimilation, which is difficult because many people are coming into the United Kingdom that do not share the Western values which have been cultivated in this great agglomeration of nations. Of course, there are many people who are coming in who do see the opportunity of perhaps a more soul-centered way of living according to these higher values. This, of course, does not mean that any nation is without its retrogression and without its, what can we call it, a sin, so to speak, forces that drag us back into personality-centeredness rather than take us forward into the realm of the soul. So there are struggles really occurring between the soul and personality of all these nations, and especially the nations which will be prominent in the emergence of humanity into the Aquarian Age. Interestingly, with the United States and England, especially, UK, basically, there is a sharing of the soul ray. The struggles are particularly severe here, and let's see what happens in Russia. Already there are many challenges to the more autocratic system and movement towards the seventh ray in a non-regimented but more creative mode. But here we have these countries on the second ray in terms of their soul, and that means they are directly aligned with the soul ray of our planet, the great second ray, and with the ray of the reappearing Christ, the head of the hierarchy. The hierarchy, of course, is a great second ray, love, wisdom, body. So basically what's happening on our planet is the second ray is trying to emerge. Now, this will entail a struggle with the habitual characteristic personality ray of our planet, the third ray, which tends to be materialistic, mental, and is an inheritance or an emphasis from the moon chain and also from the previous solar system, one of the major solar systems, but one in which personality was emphasized rather than the soul nature. So really everything you see around you, and some of it is quite, horrific, really, apparently terrible to behold because we are so centered in our form, is the result of the great struggle not only in these nations but especially on the planet to have the great second ray of the planet emerge, the second ray soul. And particularly, as I say, I think we'll see this battle being, at least at the moment, fought out within the United States and the United Kingdom, and the affiliates of the United Kingdom. Well, we know that England recently, and London as a major planetary center, has been sorely beset by these attacks and by political uncertainty. Which way do we really go here? Political turmoil. We see this in the United States as well, and it's a symptom of the attempt of the people to decide in their consciousness about their future direction. So this right outcome of this contest between the soul and personality will depend upon an understanding of the energies and forces involved. Now, many of us, maybe the majority of us, are students of spiritual occultism, and we are learning that we live in a world of energies and forces, and we have to become directors according to correct motivation of those energies and forces. So when we think of a nation, we have something similar here. The nations and those responsible must direct the energies and forces with which they are endowed. Now, when we look at the United Kingdom, see, this will be kind of, a little bit of a lecture and also some meditation as we go along. When we look at the United Kingdom, on the personality side, we have the first-ray personality, and it's been a very dominating force over the centuries. It tends to impose its will upon those that it subjugates, and maybe what we have now is some of the karma of return for that subjugation. We have also, interestingly, the seventh ray personality of London, which is the major center in the United Kingdom and also a major planetary center, a very, very important one. The United Kingdom has the motto, "I serve." And this, of course, will pertain to the most important center within that kingdom, to London, and new modes of service which are very rational and according to the divine plan will be emerging with the seventh ray, but not yet. There's a lot of old tradition which, beautiful in some ways, has to be treated more flexibly so it doesn't become a barrier to progress. We know how the seventh ray love of its traditions can hold back and not want to go into the new possibilities. And, further from the personality angle, we have the sign Taurus, which astrologically, is John Bull, and resistant to change, and can be quite materialistic. So let us, it's not always the Buddha Taurus we're talking about, is it? Sometimes it is something that is very connected with desire and grasping and holding for oneself and for material welfare, quite different from the Gemini soul sign of the United Kingdom. So here we have the first ray, the seventh ray, and Taurus. So let us have a little pondering on these energies. You can think of them as you will, taken together they can, of course, give pride and domination and rigid tradition and the following of acquisitive desire, but in your own mind, put them together and try to understand meditatively what these three forces, two rays and one astrological force or energy, have contributed to the character of the United Kingdom. So we'll have a little silent meditation on this for a few moments. what we want to remember is that these energies can be made to serve the soul nature. That first ray and seventh ray together can bring in the rule of law, the right rule of the laws which the divine plan and purpose decree. And Taurus can be a great search for the light. You know, we're going to have some strong fifth ray in London, and the scientific illumination of many factors within the natural realm which Taurus rules. So when we look at these energies and forces, we have to realize that yes, they have been used in ways that particularly emphasize the personality of the group over centuries, but that as soul infusion occurs, these forces can be made, these energies can be made to serve the higher energies, and thus it is with all of us. You know, we have certain personality energies which can be directed towards personality emphasis or can become sub-energies of the higher energies in our nature. Now, let's take a look excuse me, on the soul side. You know, at first we see the turmoil, right? This is always the case. There is turmoil in the individual life when the soul begins to seek to correct the tendencies of the personality energies. There's conflict, and it can go on for lifetimes in the case of the individual. And let's see how long it goes on in the case of these very progressive nations which stand at the forefront of human consciousness in many respects. At least their higher elements do. Let's see how long the conflict goes on. We don't have so much time because it is possible to enter the Aquarian age in an adverse manner. We don't often think that that may be possible, but it is. So on the soul side, we have the energy of the great second ray, and it is aligned with the soul nature of our planet and with the hierarchy and with the Christ. So it's a very important energy that is emerging, because now is the time in preparation for planetary initiation, when the soul ray of the planet will emerge into greater activity. I think we're undergoing kind of a fourth subsidiary initiation on this planet, hence all the suffering, but we have taken a first major cosmic initiation, and before us looms the second initiation, planetarily considered. Now, it may be yet a long time before that happens. Maybe the Judgment Day is the time when that type of initiation will occur cosmically for our planet, and that still lies perhaps some millions of years ahead. But we are preparing for it, and the second ray must emerge more and more. Obviously, the United Kingdom can be very important in that. We also have the scientific illuminative fifth ray ruling the soul of London. And when you think about Sir Isaac Newton and some of the great scientists that have come out of the United Kingdom, out of England perhaps, and its affiliates, we realize the fifth ray is active. It also contributes to the, well, Alice Bailey remarked on it, kind of the concrete mindedness of some of the attitude, the English attitude. She called English a particularly inelastic tongue, but of course it can be made to be very expressive as well. Maybe she's thinking of the Sanskrit and some of the great languages which are used to describing the spiritual states, as perhaps English is not yet. But this concrete nature and the illumination that may come from it and the connection with the solar angels that have a strong fifth and second ray. Yes, these are future possibilities for London as a planetary center and as the center of the United Kingdom. And then we have the great second ray of Gemini, the soul sign. Gemini relates soul and personality. It relates the opposites. It brings together the two brothers, or the brother and the sister, however you want to think of it. It's usually considered Castor and Pollux, with Pollux being related to the soul, or even to the higher spiritual aspects, and Castor made up of 3 pairs of double stars, so we have 7 in all, 6 plus 1, is more related to the subsidiaries, whether it's the monad and the lesser 6 planes, or whether it is the soul and all aspects of the subsidiary energies. So that great second ray of Gemini will reinforce the second ray soul. And hence we see that when this motto emerges for the United Kingdom, I serve, it's so simple, it's so direct, and it's so comprehensive, and a great communication can occur from the United Kingdom all over the world to demonstrate in words, in actions, in relationships, the incoming of the second ray. So it's very, very promising. So let's ponder for a few moments on the combination of the second ray soul of the United Kingdom, the fifth ray soul of London with all of its high mental and illuminated potential, and Gemini, the sign which relates the opposites with its very strong second ray. Let's have a few moments. Now, the emerging spiritual success of any nation depends upon the building of its causal body, its egoic lotus. Nations have these higher vehicles, just as the individual human being does. So we're needing to learn in every nation, if we're ever going to have true hierarchical influence in these nations, we need to learn how to build the causal body of the nation out of its best qualities and its virtues, which will then subsume or take into take into a gathering, an ingathering, the personality energies. So what happens then? You know, there's so much turmoil now, but think of it, the great second ray is the unifying ray, the will to unify. And there's such disparities, apparently, to unify, but overall I think the process will have to be successful. You know, when we're dealing with the first ray and Taurus and the resistance to change, and the seventh ray, we've always done it this way, and these are our traditions and so forth, they can resist this amalgamative urge to bring great diversity into unity. And Gemini will help with that, of course, because it's a sign of great diversity and the ability to handle and learn about all of this diversity. So right now we see the conflicts involved in diversity when different modes of living collide with each other, and there is not sufficient understanding. But Gemini and the second ray will bring about that understanding, and the more we develop the second ray and the sign Gemini, the more we will develop the causal body, the egoic lotus of the United Kingdom. So let's just ponder a little bit about what emerging from the present conflict the United Kingdom could be, with the emphasis upon the second ray and Gemini subsuming, taking into its sphere or its orbit the first ray, the seventh ray, and the energy of Taurus, which usually pertain to the personality. Let's think about the future under the second ray and the sign Gemini, the future for the United Kingdom. Let's ponder. Now we also have to take into consideration that London, as a major world center and the very center of the United Kingdom from the point of view of power and influence, is ruled by two signs, Libra on the outer level. So this is all of the former propriety associated with the seventh ray, now apparently breaking down under the more cosmopolitan influence of the second ray, and then Leo. Leo, interestingly enough, again associated with the solar angels, with the fifth ray, soul of London, and Leo is the soul sign of London, the will to illumine. We can only imagine that in the light of love and under the influence of law properly applied, and spreading the illumination of the plan, the United Kingdom, led by London, we might say, will have a very strong role in bringing this great collection of people into real alignment with the divine plan, and behind it, the divine purpose. So those of us who live in the United Kingdom, okay, and those who think seriously in its direction and for its welfare, let's remember these energies emerging spiritually for the welfare of this great gathering of people who will be instrumental in helping humanity enter the Aquarian age. Let's review the spiritual energies, the second ray soul of the United Kingdom, the fifth ray personality, the fifth ray soul of London, and the sign Gemini for the entire United Kingdom in its soul sense, and the sign Leo. Very bright, very illuminative. This is different in a way from the usual mode of applying Taurus, but think of all the illumination in Taurus once it is gathered properly under the influence of the higher energy. So when we see these horrific things happening, and they are, we have to realize what the process is, and it's a long process, and it's a process which is going to span the next 100 years, hopefully improving with the spiritual energies becoming more and more evident. And so we have three great nations coming together, all of them subject to struggle, as the soul values try to emerge. The United States, the United Kingdom, and Russia, where great experiments are underway. And in a way, I think the Tibetan has kind of divided this with, in a larger sense, the United Kingdom and London taking the first ray position in its constructive nature, America, United States, more the second ray position, and Russia, more the third ray position. So we have the necessary 1, 2, 3 necessary for manifesting the higher qualities. And now, together, thinking of the great movement forward, let us say together the first stanza of the great invocation. This was given in 1936 and particularly sought to evoke the forces of light and goodwill. In our present world turmoil, we need goodwill and loving understanding as never before. It's a dangerous situation given the worldwide weaponry and our capacity as a race to destroy ourselves. So I apologize that I cannot read this in Finnish, but those people who are Finnish, you can see it on the screen. So great invocation number 1, and you can say this aloud in your homes as we read together. Let the forces of light bring illumination to mankind. Let the spirit of peace be spread abroad. May men of goodwill everywhere meet in a spirit of cooperation. May forgiveness on the part of all men be the keynote at this time. Let power attend the efforts of the great ones. So let it be, and help us to do our part. And we can see how well the real energies, spiritual energies of the United Kingdom and its center fit with this invocation. So in our triangles work, we spread light and goodwill, and increasingly, if we can manage it, the will to good, which comes from these higher forces of light. This, if you ever read about it in Discipleship in the New Age, this invocation reaches very, very high, up into Shambhala. May we all learn to cooperate with the world teacher, the Christ, as he seeks to help humanity make its successful transition into its greater possibilities. And I wonder, you know, maybe I can find in a different place, I'll look here, and there's the second great invocation, and I think we can say that together too. It's not in such beautiful form, but here it is from the books. And this carries the quality of the first ray. And we are living in a time when, again, it must be applied, not just as it was in the Second World War. We're living in a critical time as well, when the first ray must be used correctly, or it will lead to great destruction. Let the Lords of liberation issue forth. Let them bring succor to the sons of men. Let the rider from the secret place come forth, and coming save. Come forth, O mighty one. Let the souls of men awaken to the light, and may they stand with massed intent. Let the fiat of the Lord go forth. The end of woe has come. Come forth, O mighty one. The hour of service of the saving force has now arrived. Let it be spread abroad, O mighty one. Let light and love and power and death fulfill the purpose of the coming one. The will to save is here. The love to carry forth the work is widely spread abroad. The active aid of all who know the truth is also here. Come forth, O mighty one, and blend these three. Construct a great defending wall. The rule of evil now must end. And finally, we will close our work together with the great invocation with which we are most familiar, given out in 1945 as a marker, a testimony to the fact that the Christ had agreed to appear in physical form during the Aquarian Age to carry out his redemptive task. So together, from the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Well, thank you, friends, for participating in this meditation in which we've been focusing on the United Kingdom, its present condition, and its potentials according to the energies available. And we can do that with each of the three pivotal nations, and we can do that, in fact, with all nations. Some are less developed, perhaps, are not as mature yet, but there are so many nations that must add their spiritual qualities in order to build the causal body of humanity the way it must be built. And we can understand with humanity where it's at the present time, that causal body, that egoic lotus, is not built. We're simply talking about the first initiation of humanity. So maybe the fifth petal of the humanity's egoic lotus is almost unfolded, and there's some work in the sacrificial sixth petal and a little bit in the seventh petal, but it's going to take a long time for us to bring that egoic lotus of humanity to the proper and full unfoldment, where there will be great benefit for all. And maybe by the time the judgment day is reached, this will occur, because then all the human beings who are on our planet will be on the path, whether in the early stages of the path or the Chohanic stages much, much later. Towards that we are working, and towards making our planet a sacred planet. Coming up tomorrow, let's see, this is morning, isn't it? Okay. We will have the Attracting Money for Spiritual Purposes meditation, and then next week, as I say, Tuya and I are up here at the Little Bear Meditation Center north of the Arctic Circle. The energies can be very strong up here, and we'll be working in the evening, the 5 p.m. Meditations for the Ask program, and also the glamour work will continue as part of the Ask program on Fridays, and then on Saturdays there'll be a morning meditation, which will take up again the science of triangles. So every Saturday, the science of triangles discussion, webinar, will occur at the time that the Ask project is not occurring. In other words, if we're having a Sunday evening or a Saturday evening meditation, then the science of triangles will be in the morning, and vice versa. So we've been traveling quite a bit from the conference and up here into the north, and perhaps a little bit of confusion has arisen now and then about when the programs are coming, but we want to thank all those who have been organizing these presentations and sending out the schedules, and if occasionally Tuya and I have to change things a bit, then we apologize for any confusion that it may be causing. All right. So thank you, everybody, and we will now just look at a few slides that remind us of our other activities. All the nations seen as one, unity and diversity. And this will give you an idea of some of the activities in which you can participate. So, Tuya and I wish you well for the day, and we'll be back with you tomorrow morning. At least it's morning here in Europe, 5 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Bye-bye for now.